Hello, welcome back. My name is Dwight Gillespie. This is the Change Your Life podcast. We're coming at you from Queens, New York. I have my book is coming out soon. It'll be out April 28th, and it's called Price Tags. And this is a copy. This is my author's copy, not for resale. It says it right on there. Anyway, this is the Change Your Life podcast. This is our episode number 2, and basically what the podcast is about is just that, is changing your life. And last time I told you a little bit about myself, where I'm from, what I do. You can go back and take a look at that. Today we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, defining what's important in life, and what I find important to me, and how a lot of that had to change over the course of time in order for me to, to lead a better life, to change what I needed to change. A lot of it came from becoming accountable. I used to get caught up in a lot of material stuff, like a lot of people do. I think I've been addicted to just about everything you could be addicted to in life, and that included money for a long time. I had given up drugs and drinking and all that good stuff. Alcohol is a drug, by the way. And it just changed because I wasn't doing any work on myself. I just found something else to be addicted to. So for a long time, it was work and money, and acquiring things, and the bigger the better, and all that kind of stuff. The person with the most toys at the end wins, and that whole mindset. But I started finding as I get older that changed a lot. And I started to realize that all the crap in the world was not making me happy. And I found the things that made me more content with my life were really the things that were free. And I began to understand that I took for granted the things that I got for free, and I put too much emphasis on the things that I had to pay for, not realizing that really anything material you can lose. And another thing that struck me was that you don't own anything. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news with that. But you really own nothing, like nothing. So nothing really matters. When you die, trust me, you're not taking it with you. You get a box and they put you in the ground. Now, personally, I hope they burn me, but that's for another podcast. But you own nothing. So all the stuff that you're going to acquire, you're really just renting for the time that you're here. And they're not going to put a car or a house or any of that stuff in the ground with you, when you go. And somebody else, and you have no control over that either. You can write a piece of paper, but you don't know what's going to happen after you're gone. Let's be honest. So I needed to define what was important to me and what it was that I really wanted to do. And I'm going to tell you about an exercise. And I read this in a book by a guy named Adeshante. He asked a question, and he said he wanted you to contemplate on this, and I recommend it. And I have a link that you'll get down below, or we're going to put it across, depending on where you're watching this, whether it's YouTube or Spotify or whatever it is. You can get it off of my website, which is www.dwightgillespieauthor.com, and you can get it there. And basically, it's this exercise. I write it out for you to help you with it. And what it is to take 20 minutes and sit down. Right. And just sit down and really think hard about what is your perfect day? What is important to you? Like, what would you, if you had your druthers, right? If you could live it any way you wanted to, how would you live your life? Like, what would your day be like? And I'm not talking about sitting on a beach in Bali, drinking Mai Tais and, having beautiful people all around you and all that good stuff and all the sex you want or whatever it is, whatever your fantasies are. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a realistic day. This is your day. What time do you get up? What are you doing? Where do you work? Do you work from home? Do you go to an office? If you drive a car, what kind of car are you driving? What is your significant other like, or others? I don't know. There are a lot of different lifestyles out there nowadays. And to really think about in detail, what is your life like? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you, how do you pass your time? What is your typical day like? And then to take another 20 minutes and write about it in detail, in that kind of detail. Like, this is what it would be. This is my life. And then there's another part of that, right? Because then I want you to take another 20 minutes and really think about yesterday, right? Yesterday, as a typical day, what was your day like? Did you get up and go to a job you hate and know that you have to endure it for another 7 years before you can retire, whatever that is? Did you not have any job? Did you wake up and say, today I'm going to really look for a job, and then proceed to sit down and watch Jerry Springer and Maury, or play video games or any of that stuff? Like, what is it that you really did? What did you eat? When you say, well, I want to be thinner, I want to be healthier, I want to feel better about my, what did you do? Did you meditate? Did you pray? Did you do any of these things that people do that are conducive to living a better life and doing better things? And it's a big question, that, because I got to tell you this: you are who you are because of you and the decisions that you make every single day. And what's important to you is exactly what you do, because you are exactly where you want to be. If you weren't, you'd do something about it. I always say, you don't stick your hand in boiling water twice, right? And you know not to do that because you know it hurts. However, people live the same life day after monotonous day. They lead a life of mediocrity, swearing that they don't want to, yet doing nothing to improve that. And I did it myself. I was addicted to depression. I must have been, because I was so depressed. And all I could do was just stay on the couch and tell people, you don't understand. You don't understand. And they didn't. And listen, I grew up in a very difficult house. I did drugs from a very young age. I had a horrible marriage. My first marriage, it ended in divorce. My wife cheated, and I was psychotic. I've done stints on psych wards. I married a nice girl. We had a child. He died. Like, I had all of these things to be depressed over, right? And I'm not saying that these aren't valid, and we'll get to that in another episode on depression. What I'm saying is I let them define me. And I lived off that depression. And the reason I say I was addicted to the depression, just like I've been addicted to material stuff and all that, is because when people would give me very good suggestions about how to get over it, I didn't want to take them. Change of thought, move a muscle. Again, I'm going to do a podcast on this, so I don't want to get too far into that. But I lived a life of mediocrity, is what I'm getting at. I lived a life of victimization. I lived a life of never being satisfied, right? And of thinking that other things are going to bring me to satisfaction. If I have enough hats, right? I started a hat collection. I've had this hat collection for a while. But, oh boy, if I get more, I need that. None of it makes me happy, right? None of it made me happy. None of it made me satisfied. It was great, for that moment that you open up the box or whatever it is, if you're a shopaholic or whatever, you get that package, you open it up, oh, look, I got this thing. Now it's done. Now I got to go on to the next thing, right? And that stuff never made me happy. It wasn't until I really started to discuss, like, to take that little test and say, well, wait a second. If this is my ideal life, what am I doing to realize that life? What am I doing to satisfy those requirements for myself? Right? If my dream life consists of me waking up in a house by the beach and hearing the ocean outside and watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean, what am I doing to realize that end? Now, I'm not saying you have to be there right now, but I'm saying that if you're not working toward that you'll never be there, that it becomes nothing more than a dream. And there's a thing about desire and willingness and action, right? You can desire anything. I can tell you, I desire to sprout wings and fly around the world 3 times, or be like Superman, right? If you go really fast, you can reverse time and all that shit. I can tell you that I desire that, but it's unrealistic, right? I can tell you that I desire to have that beach house, but if there's no willingness behind it, if there's no willingness to say, well, this is what I have to sacrifice. Again, I wrote this book, Price Tags, and Price Tags has a lot of that in mind, is that you have to pay a price, and you're going to pay a price. The price is, if I want that beach, there's certain things that I'm gonna have to work hard. I'm gonna have to write more books. I'm gonna have to give more lectures. I'm gonna have to do more podcasts. I'm gonna have to take this stuff very seriously in order to achieve what I really want to achieve. And then I will be able to reap the rewards. And it's not guaranteed either. But there is a guarantee that if I don't do these things, if I don't work harder, if I don't put any effort into this, I'm not going to do it. So I have the willingness. Now I have to put the action behind it. When I put the action behind it, the results will come on their own. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But as I said, if I don't do it, the results definitely won't be there. And I have to keep trying until I realize these goals. There's a great book, and I've mentioned it in my last podcast, and I want to talk about it a little bit more. It's Viktor Frankl, and it changed the way that I looked at things. It really did. It helped me with so much. And I'll mention it in a lot of my podcasts because it had that kind of an effect on me. It's Man's Search for Meaning. And the idea of Viktor Frankl, if you don't know, he was an Austrian Jew who was taken to the concentration camps during World War II, and he survived. He was a psychiatrist. He was the head psychiatrist at the Vienna Psychiatric Hospital, I believe it was. And he went there, and he had this idea before he went about the idea that people need purpose in their life in order to survive, to thrive, to live, to continue to want to get up the next day. And he found that in the camps, that he saw that the people that gave up, the people who saw no purpose in their life, were the people who would die. And he said that he could predict within a couple of weeks who was going to die and who wasn't. And ironically, he said a lot of it started with a lack of belief in God or some personal power. And I am a believer in God, not a religious God, but a God of my understanding. And again, we'll get to that again as well. But I think that finding this purpose, this higher calling, is important. And I don't think that it's necessary that that you may not know what that calling is going to be. And I made up this story for a young lady. She lost her boyfriend, and she said, "Well, he was so young. He had overdosed on heroin." And she said, "Well, what was his meaning? What was his purpose?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. And maybe we don't. Maybe we're not supposed to know." And I'll tell you, it was a short story that I kind of wrote for her, and I'll tell it really fast. It's a fiction story. I made it up, and it was really to help her. The point of the story is that oftentimes I don't think we know what our purpose is. We don't know why we're here, why we were put on this planet, and it goes like this. There's a woman, and every day she comes out of her office and she walks over this guy, this homeless guy in the street who's begging for money every day. But one day, for whatever reason, she decides to do a good deed, and she stops and she sees this sign that says "Help, need food," whatever, and she goes and she feeds him. She gets him a meal, and he's so taken by this because he's watched this woman walk past him, day after day after day, and he's so taken with her sudden generosity that he decides to really get his stuff together, and he cleans himself up, and he gets help, through the system or whatever, and he cleans up and he gets a job, and he wants to give back to other people because of the good deed that was done for him. So he meets this woman and her daughter, right? She's got a little girl, and this little girl has had no consistency in her education or anything like that. She's been going from school to school to school because her mother gets bounced around from shelter to shelter. And this guy goes out of his way to help them. And the mother gets a good apartment. She gets an apartment in the city, and the daughter is able to go to school, and she finishes up going all the way through high school, and she makes really good friends and everything. And she's so taken by what this man had done for her and her mother that she decides to go into social work, and she becomes a social worker, and she decides that she wants to help single moms and their daughters as well. And she meets this other mom. It's like one of her first cases that she has. She meets this mom and her daughter, and she does for them what was done for her and her mother. And this little girl, grows up, same thing. And, she's a very bright young woman, and she goes to college, and she doesn't really like the whole idea of working with people, but she wants to give back. So she decides to go into research. She's a scientist. She goes into research. And eventually she finds a cure for some horrible disease, whatever it is, diabetes, cancer, whatever. Doesn't really matter. It's a fiction story. The idea is that all of this happens because, 40 years before that, somebody was nice enough, went out of their way and did the next right thing and helped this homeless guy out where they didn't have to. But because they did that next right thing, it had ramifications, the butterfly effect. And these people felt it 2 generations later, right? And this little girl grows up to cure some horrible disease because, like I said, 30 or 40 years before that, somebody was kind to a homeless guy. She wasn't aware of what had happened. The woman who gave the meal wasn't aware of what had happened, but this happened. And that's the whole point, and as I say, I find it hard to believe that anybody on their deathbed, is going to sit there and say something, I wish I collected more hats. I should have had more baseball cards. And by the way, these are all things I've been addicted to possessing in my life, right? And only the hats remain, by the way. Nobody on their deathbed goes through that. Nobody says, "Oh, I wish I worked more hours. I wish I had accumulated more things. I wish I had had more cars." Nobody cares Because in the final analysis, you own nothing. Nothing is yours. They're not going to bury you with your house. They're not going to bury you with your car. At the end, what people lament most is not spending enough time with family, with friends, with taking too much time in the pursuit of material stuff that just did not matter at all. And that's such a shame. And your life goes by, your life moves. Time doesn't care. It doesn't care about your race, your gender, your sexual preferences, your nationality, your likes, your dislikes. Time just keeps on marching by. How do you want to use it? You want to know what your purpose is? Go out there and help somebody. Do the next right thing. Do the right thing for humanity and for your society around you. Really help someone. Don't just talk about it. Talk is so cheap. Say, oh, I feel good because I say all the right things and I hang out with all the right people, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not extending yourself to people. What is your purpose? I don't know. But your purpose isn't to sit here and lead a mediocre life and hope that things get better. Because hoping for it doesn't help. Praying on it does. I'm a big believer in that, although I'm not a religious person. Praying on it helps people. To try and find the direction, to do the next right thing, you will find your purpose. If you take that little test that I told you about, that again, you can get from www.dwightgillespieauthor.com. You can get that off the website or the link below. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find it there. You take that. Try and live your perfect day. See what it is. How do you want to live? Because the more, I believe that the closer you live to nature and to humanity, the better off you'll be, and the closer you are to actually achieving your true purpose in life and to finding that true purpose. I think it's a very rare gift that people find out what their purpose is here. I think many of us go before we get to feel that. But doing the next right thing is always, always a good thing and a good place to start. Not wanting to live a mediocre life anymore, not wanting to live in a humdrum existence of going day by day, wasting day after day after day, and getting to the end of that day and just lamenting and saying, how did I waste all this time again today? Make it a worthwhile day. Make it a good day. Make it your day. Change your life. You can do this. You can live the best life you've ever lived. You can have the best body you've ever had, and you can have the most spiritual understanding that you've ever experienced. It all happens a day at a time. My name is Dwight. I'm glad you took your time to listen. Please check in again. We'll be updating podcasts on a regular basis. Like and subscribe. Hit that like button. And please share this with your friends. Share it with your friends. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful week. Bye now.